She returned his ring, walked away from the love of her life, and chose to protect his family over her own happiness. But what she didn't know was that sometimes the greatest love stories aren't about holding on. They're about having the courage to let go. This is the true story of how one woman's sacrifice became the very thing that saved everything she thought she'd lost forever. Sarah Mitchell was 28 years old when she learned that love doesn't always arrive the way you expect it. She'd spent most of her 20s building something from nothing, a small fragrance company. She ran out of her mother's garage in Portland, Oregon. Her hands knew the language of jasmine and vanilla, of cedar and bergamot. She could blend scents that made people remember their childhood, their first love, moments they thought they'd forgotten. It wasn't glamorous work. Most nights, she came home smelling like a chemistry lab, her fingers stained with oils, her back aching from hours bent over mixing tables. But it was hers. Every bottle, every label, every dream folded into those small glass containers belonged to her alone. Her mother, Diana, had raised her single-handedly after Sarah's father disappeared before her first birthday. Diana never spoke much about him, only that he'd made promises he couldn't keep, and that some men are better at starting things than finishing them. Diana worked 2 jobs most of Sarah's childhood, a nurse during the day and a waitress 3 nights a week, and somehow still found time to read Sarah bedtime stories and pack her lunches with little notes tucked inside. Sarah learned early that love wasn't always loud or obvious. Sometimes it was quiet, steady, showing up day after day even when you were exhausted. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. By the time Sarah turned 27, her fragrance business had started gaining real traction. She'd moved from the garage to a small storefront, hired 2 part-time employees, and was getting orders from boutiques across the Pacific Northwest. That's when Michael Harrison walked into her life on a rainy Tuesday afternoon in March. He was 34, a commercial real estate developer who'd built his company from the ground up and now owned properties in 6 states. Michael was the kind of man who wore suits that actually fit, who showed up exactly when he said he would, whose handshake was firm and whose word was solid. He'd come into Sarah's shop looking for a gift, but ended up staying for 2 hours, asking questions about how fragrances were made, why certain scents triggered memories, what made her fall in love with this particular art form. When he asked her to dinner, Sarah hesitated. She dated men before who seemed interested in her work, only to later resent how much time she devoted to it. But something about Michael's straightforward honesty made her agree. Their relationship grew slowly, naturally. Michael never rushed her, never pushed for more than she was ready to give. When she had to cancel plans because of work emergencies, he showed up with food and sat quietly while she fixed problems. When her biggest wholesale order fell through and she sat on her shop floor crying at 2 in the morning, Michael drove across town in his pajamas and just held her hand until she was ready to talk. 6 months into dating, Sarah realized she was falling in love with him. Not the shallow, butterflies kind of love, but the deep, foundational kind that changes how you see your future. Michael felt it too. She could tell by the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't paying attention, by the way he talked about plans like they were a given, not a maybe. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. But love came with complications. Michael came from what people in Portland called old money, though his family's wealth was only 2 generations deep. His mother, Patricia Harrison, was the kind of woman who sat on charity boards and hosted fundraiser galas and expected her children to marry people who understood the weight of the family name. Patricia had very specific ideas about who should stand beside her son. When Michael told Sarah he wanted her to meet his mother, Sarah felt her stomach drop. She'd been dreading this moment since she realized how serious things were becoming. Not because she was ashamed of her background, but because she knew how people like Patricia Harrison viewed people like her. Sarah had grown up on the wrong side of town with a single mother and no father in sight. But more than any of that, Sarah carried a secret she'd never told Michael, a truth about her parentage that she knew would matter to a family like his. The dinner at the Harrison estate was polite but tense. Patricia was careful with her questions, assessing Sarah beneath every word. After dinner, while Michael and his father talked business, Patricia invited Sarah for coffee in the sitting room. That's when the real conversation happened. Patricia didn't waste time with pleasantries. She sat down across from Sarah and spoke with brutal directness. "You seem like a lovely young woman. Hard-working, ambitious. Michael clearly cares for you a great deal. But caring for someone and being the right match for them are different things. Michael comes from a family with certain expectations, certain standards. When he marries, it won't just affect him. It will affect our entire family legacy, our business relationships, our standing in the community." Sarah kept her voice steady. "With respect, Mrs. Harrison, I think Michael should be the one to decide what's right for his life." Patricia's smile tightened. "You're right, of course. Michael is an adult and can make his own choices. But family matters, Sarah. Lineage matters. I did some research into your background, and I know about your father, or rather, your lack of one. I know your mother raised you alone because your father was already married to someone else when you were conceived. I know you were born out of wedlock, which in some circles, including ours, carry certain implications." The words landed like stones, sending ripples of humiliation through Sarah's chest. This was the secret she'd been carrying. Diana had fallen in love with a man who'd told her he was divorced. By the time she discovered he was still married with 3 other children, she was already pregnant. Diana had refused his offer to pay for an abortion, kept Sarah, and never contacted him again. Sarah left the Harrison estate, that night feeling hollowed out. Michael was furious with his mother, apologizing repeatedly. But Patricia's words had planted seeds of doubt. Was she being selfish by staying with Michael? Would her presence cause problems that would eventually poison their relationship? These questions haunted Sarah through the following weeks. Michael proposed to her a month later, and Sarah said yes through tears because she loved him more than she'd ever loved anyone. But even as she said it, Patricia's words echoed in her mind. The engagement period should have been joyful, but it quickly became complicated. Patricia refused to acknowledge the engagement publicly, wouldn't attend their celebration party, sent gifts with notes that carried no warmth or congratulations. Michael tried to bridge the gap, but Patricia's stance remained firm. Then came the breaking point. Michael's sister Emma pulled Sarah aside after a family gathering. They sat in Emma's car, and Emma looked at Sarah with something like pity in her eyes. "I need to tell you something. My mother has already rewritten her will. She's told my father that if Michael marries you, he'll be removed as successor to the family business. She's threatening to cut Michael out of the family trust entirely. She wants him to choose between you and his family legacy, and she's counting on his sense of duty to make him choose correctly." Sarah felt the floor drop out from under her. That night, she lay awake staring at the ceiling while Michael slept beside her. She thought about her mother, who'd walked away from a man rather than force him to choose between her and his existing family. Diana had told Sarah once that the mark of real love isn't holding on tighter. Sometimes it's knowing when to let go. The next morning, Sarah asked Michael to meet her at their favorite coffee shop. When they sat down, she took a breath and said the hardest words she'd ever spoken. "I can't marry you. Not because I don't love you. I love you more than I thought I could love anyone. But your family will never accept me, and I can't be the reason you lose them. Your mother is willing to cut you out of the business, out of the family legacy, all because of me. That's not a foundation for a marriage, Michael. That's a disaster waiting to happen." Michael's hand tightened around hers. "I don't care about the business or the money or any of it. I care about you." Sarah's voice broke. "But you do care. Maybe not about the money, but about your family, about your place in it, about your relationship with your mother. I can't ask you to sacrifice that. I can't live my life knowing I'm the wedge between you and your family. That would poison everything eventually." She slid the ring off her finger and placed it on the table between them, then left before she could change her mind. The weeks that followed were agony. Sarah threw herself into work, but everything reminded her of Michael. She deleted his number, blocked his social media, tried to move forward. Michael tried to contact her repeatedly, but Sarah held firm. Eventually, his attempts stopped. 2 months after the breakup, Sarah's business landed a huge contract with a national retailer. But even this success felt hollow without Michael to share it with. Then something unexpected happened. Sarah's business lawyer, Jennifer, called her into a meeting. Patricia Harrison had requested to meet with Jennifer, asking questions about Sarah's finances and background. Jennifer had laid out every detail of Sarah's business success to prove Sarah wasn't after Michael's money. Now Patricia wanted to meet with Sarah directly. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Every instinct in Sarah's body screamed no, but part of her still loved Michael desperately and wanted to know what Patricia had to say. They met at a quiet restaurant on a Thursday afternoon. Patricia arrived exactly on time, but something in her demeanor had shifted. She seemed less rigid, more uncertain. "I owe you an apology," Patricia said, the words clearly difficult for her. "I've spent the past 2 months watching my son fall apart. Michael has been a shell of himself since you left, and I realized I'm responsible for that. I took the person who made him happy and drove her away because of my own prejudices and pride." Patricia continued, her voice softer. "I had a private investigator look into you. I learned about how you put yourself through school, started your business with $800, how you support your mother now, how you organized fundraisers for people in need, how you volunteer teaching entrepreneurship classes. I learned that you're not at all the person I decided you were based on your parents' mistakes." Sarah blinked back tears. Patricia reached across the table. "I was wrong about you, Sarah. Profoundly wrong. In my stubbornness, I destroyed my son's happiness and lost the chance to have a daughter-in-law who might have been exactly what this family needs. Someone with character, integrity, and strength. Someone who loved my son enough to walk away rather than cause him pain. I want to make this right, if it's not too late. I want to apologize properly, in front of my family. I want to tell Michael I was wrong. I want to ask if you would consider giving us another chance." Sarah sat in stunned silence. Part of her wanted to say yes immediately, but another part needed to be sure. "How do I know this isn't temporary? I can't go through this twice. I barely survived it once." Patricia nodded. "All I can offer is my word. Come to my home this weekend. Bring your mother. Let me apologize to both of you in front of my entire family. Let me prove this isn't just words." The weekend came faster than Sarah expected. She and Diana drove to the Harrison estate together, both quiet with nerves. The entire Harrison family was gathered when they arrived, and Michael himself, standing by the fireplace looking thinner than Sarah remembered, his eyes haunted until they landed on her. The look on his face nearly broke Sarah's composure. It was hope and pain and love all mixed together. Patricia stood in front of them and apologized. Not vaguely, but specifically, acknowledging every wrong thing she'd said and done. She apologized for judging Sarah based on circumstances beyond her control, for valuing reputation over character, for threatening Michael, for causing pain to everyone. She turned to Diana and apologized for disrespecting her life choices. "Family isn't just about bloodlines and traditions," Patricia said, her voice wavering. "It's about the people who show up, who love each other through difficulties." Sarah showed me what real love looks like when she walked away. I'm asking now, in front of everyone, for forgiveness. And I'm asking Sarah if she would consider giving Michael, giving all of us, another chance. Every eye was on Sarah. She looked at Michael, who seemed afraid to breathe. Then at Patricia, seeing genuine remorse. Finally at her mother, who squeezed her hand and nodded. "I forgave you the moment you apologized," Sarah said quietly. "I'd like to try again, if Michael wants that too." Michael crossed the room and dropped to his knees in front of Sarah. He pulled the ring from his pocket, hands shaking. "I never stopped loving you. Not for a single day. Will you please marry me?" Sarah was crying now. "Yes, yes, I'll marry you." The room erupted in applause and tears. Michael slid that ring back onto her finger, holding her face like she was something precious he'd almost lost forever. The wedding took place 4 months later. Patricia had transformed into an enthusiastic mother-in-law, treating Sarah with genuine affection. On her wedding day, Diana helped Sarah with a dress and hugged her tightly. "I'm so proud of you. You're braver than I ever was." When Sarah walked down the aisle toward Michael, she saw Patricia beaming with genuine joy, saw all of Michael's family celebrating wholeheartedly, and she understood something profound. The greatest love stories aren't the ones without obstacles. They're the ones where people choose to grow, to change, to become better versions of themselves for the sake of love. So let me ask you this. If you were in Sarah's position, would you have had the strength to walk away from someone you love to protect them from family conflict? Or would you have fought harder to make the relationship work regardless of the obstacles? How do you know when to hold on and when to let go? Sarah's story reminds us that sometimes the most loving thing we can do is give someone the space to grow, even if it means temporarily losing them. And sometimes, just sometimes, that sacrifice becomes the very thing that saves the love we thought we'd lost forever. Before you go, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos.